Hey guys, so I'm back doing another Table Talk Thursday. For those of you who are new to my channel, you probably haven't seen me do this before, but this is where I kind of sit and kind of have a conversation with you guys and inform you of something I feel is important. And recently I haven't really felt like there was something I really wanted to talk about, so I haven't done this for a while. And today, this is going to probably be a 4 to 5 part Table Talk because I really want to set this up very well because after all the recent gun violence in America, I keep hearing this argument that it's a gun issue, but it is. I will fully admit, part of it is a gun issue. Nobody needs an AK-45, or 47, whatever it is. But the other issue is mental health, and I feel like we don't address that enough. So the first few parts, I'm going to focus on mental health in America and around the world, because I took down some statistics. This is from the NAMTA, the National Alliance on Mental Health. About 20% of kids between the ages of 13 to 18 have some sort of mental health disorder. 11% have mood disorders, 10% have behavioral disorders, and 8% have anxiety disorders. And 50% of the cases that start after the age of 14 are lifetime. 75% will start at age 24, and that's going to be a lifetime. 24% are in prison, and 60%, this is a number that shocks me the most, 60% refuse to get help. Now, before the 1980s, we had in place a mental health care system, where if people refused to get help, their families could put them in a hospital to make sure they took their medicines and got on track. But in 1980, you have the Mental Health Care Act, which stops that, and it pretty much comes down to the fact that we didn't have enough money at the time to fund these state-run mental health facilities. And yes, not all of them were nice, and yes, Geraldo Rivera does do a report on that, which I'll address in the next video, but I just want to set up a little bit of the history of mental health. So, mental health has always been something families hide. They don't want to talk about it, they don't want to see it. Back in the 1600s and 1700s, you had people just kind of put their family members up in the attic. You always had that crazy aunt or uncle that you put up in the attic and you forgot about. And this was a very common practice because we didn't understand the mind. And then you have men like Sigmund Freud come out who start studying the mind, start creating the field of psychology, but we still don't understand what mental health is. Like, I suffer from depression. I'm not the only member of my family who does. My mother and father don't have it, my brother doesn't have it. But I suffer from it. My grandmother had postpartum depression after she had my mother. And I have a cousin who is bipolar. He's bipolar. So, I understand the struggles of mental health. Like, I understand the day-to-day struggles sometimes of where I randomly just get really sad and I can't explain it. And it's hard for me to, see the world where, oh my god, every time somebody shoots somebody else, it's a gun issue. Out of the last major shootings, a lot of these people were actually on the mental health radar. Like, the kid who shot up Sandy Hook, I refuse to learn their names just because they're evil people, but the kid who shot up Sandy Hook, his biological father wanted to put him in a mental asylum because he thought he was that unstable. But the mother said no because she felt like she knew her son and trusted her son. She's the one who had guns. And my biggest thing is, anybody who has a mental health disorder, you need to get help. You need to reach out, you need to talk to somebody, because you can't do it alone. And the more you do it alone, the worse it gets, because that's what I did. I did that for 4 years before I finally broke down and told my parents that I was just super sad all the time. And I used to hide it behind a big smile, and now that I've gotten the help, now that I'm on track, I feel so much better. It's like a relief. But it bothers me that we don't talk about this. And to give you some cool sources to watch before my next one, there's a documentary on Hulu called Cropsey, which deals with this mental asylum up in New Jersey that shuts down, and then these girls go missing, and the myth of the Cropsey killer clown. And it kind of talks about the health system there, but it's pretty interesting to see how people interpret mental disease. Like, for them to talk about this mental asylum as if it's like this ghost place and where all these crazy people did all these crazy things, but they don't see them as being human in a way, and it bothers me. Another great book is called American Psychosis. I didn't write the author's name, but you'll see a picture of it on the screen now. I highly recommend reading that book. If you have a chance, if you have Audible, just download it on Audible, because I listened to this book. It was absolutely incredible to listen to how the American healthcare system works and what it was beforehand, because a lot of times they used to do lobotomies because they thought that was a part of the mental disease, where they'd cut off a part of the brain because they felt like that was a bad part of the brain, and trying to cure them. And one of the most famous people to get lobotomized, well, out of the family at least, is JFK's sister, his older sister, whose name I cannot remember. But it bothers me because we don't talk about it. When we talk about mental disease, we talk about, the worst case scenarios. Like you see the schizophrenics who are in the break who have tinfoil all over their windows. That's not mental health all over. Like, you could have people who have depression, and you'll never know it because they'll be smiling at you the whole time. Or you can have people who have OCD. They have to have things in certain ways, and just things like that. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist if you can't see it. Like, my friend put it the best way. She says, from here down, we have so many groups that are trying to help everybody out, but from here up, we don't know anything about it, and we don't care enough to know. And it bothers me. It really does. I may be teaching AP Psychology next year. Of course, I have this, which is the review book for it, because I wanted to understand it a little bit better. But I took a lot of psychology classes in high school. And what stood out to me is when we talk about mental disorders, even in a psychology class, we talk about it in depth and you kind of understand it more, but we kind of brush by it too. Unless you're like a major in psychology, going to become a psychologist or a psychiatrist, you don't really focus on like the nitty-gritty of, well, this may be why this is happening. And I do think, in a way, mental disabilities, mental disorders are genetic. Like, being fully honest, the fact that I have ADHD, the fact that I'm dyslexic, and the fact that I suffer from depression, I have 3 different mental disorders that I have to come to grips with. And like my ADHD, yeah, there's medicine for it, and yeah, sometimes it makes you feel like shit. Depression, antidepressants will make you feel like shit. I know that for a fact. I've heard that from friends who've had to take it. But even any antipsychotic, and if we cared enough, in my opinion, if we cared enough to try and find a cure for these, we would have better medicine. It wouldn't be the medicine that makes you feel like absolutely horrible, makes you don't feel like yourself. And it bothers me because I wish there was more awareness for mental health. I wish there was some sort of push for people to at least attempt to try and help people with mental health disorders, because guess what? We're not doing enough. We're not. We're throwing these people to the dogs in the streets, and that's why you have cases of like these kids who are not in the right mindset, per se, doing these crazy events, or you have people who are victimized because they're schizophrenic or they're bipolar or there's something mentally wrong with them, and people take advantage of them. And next time I will have a few interviews. I may get it recorded and I'll put it in from a Discord call. But before I go, I want to suggest a book, and I may be very biased on this. It is called Chained in Silence, Black Women in Convict Labor in the New South by Talitha LaFloria. She was my favorite professor in college, and I wrote a very interesting paper on incarceration, mental health, and divides in race. And I love this book. This is probably one of my most favorite books. She was first to publish on this subject, and she's absolutely amazing, so definitely guys check it out. I've read this cover to cover at least 3 times. But next time I'm really going to go into depth. I'm going to really research mental health. I'm going to really research like what we think of mental health and how the rest of the world perceives it, because I don't think it's just one issue that comes up when we have these mass shootings. I don't think it's many issues, or it's a combination of many issues in a way, but I'll talk more about that next time. I will get into the gun issue probably 3 or 4 episodes down the line on this, because I really want to jump into what mental health is, explain that, explore that with you guys, and then come back to that. So what I'm now going to do is probably post this in the morning and post the TCG in the afternoon starting next week. I may post the TCG much later on tonight because I still have to do the audio for that. I hope you guys enjoyed my first table talk. If you're new to the channel, if you aren't, leave a comment down below. What avenue do you want me to explore dealing with this subject? Is there another subject you want me to do on Table Talk Thursday? Bye, guys.